87% of Americans are stressed out about money. That's terrible. That one thing alone is a problem. Work hard, get a paycheck, hours for cash. I want you to invest your time, not spend your time. You can do it. Just start.
Sharon, thank you for coming on the show today. I think you've hit on a hot topic. Actually, I read your book cover to cover, and I think it's very important. You know, we're seeing a lot of women get into the workplace now. Isn't it 50% of the workplace is women right now? And we're seeing a lot more female entrepreneurs. I know in commercial real estate, we're definitely seeing a lot more entrepreneurs get into the industry as brokers and investors. So I think talking about your book can be very important. I want to kind of give you a backstory. So you're international recognized speaker on financial literacy, best-selling author, of course, successful entrepreneur, 35 years as a CPA, advised 2 U.S. presidents on the topic of financial literacy. I believe it was Bush and Obama, correct?
That's correct.
And you co-authored the international bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, with Robert Kiyosaki and 14 other books. Plus, you've managed to raise children and grandchildren all while doing this. So those are some incredible accomplishments. And 44 years of marriage this year. Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm delighted to be with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. Tell us about what made you want to write this book.
Well, this is my 28th book. And so I'm very proud of it because there's no other book like it. It's a 4-color, almost like a graphic novel. And we take women from every decade of life, from 19 to 86, and talk about the various things we face along the way. And not just the emotional side of it, but the things of how you can recover from situations and resources that you can use. So we go from going to college, starting a business, planning a wedding, to being married and having to get out of an abusive marriage with kids and starting over again. One is where a woman is thriving and she realizes her son is a special needs child. And so that changes how she can make money, how she works, and the resources she needs to get through that. And then one that's been married 25 years, looking forward to retirement. Husband comes home and says he wants a divorce. And she has nothing in her own name. She has no credit in her own name. And this happens all the time. And somebody else who's been married 25, 30 years and her husband dies. And same thing. She had nothing in her name. And so it really creates a huge obstacle for women. And typically when you get divorced, your standard of living falls. So we really want to encourage women to really build their own financial platforms, whether you're happily married or not. It's important to have credit in your own name. If your husband dies suddenly and you're not on the accounts, you're not, you don't have your own credit rating, you have a mountain to climb in a moment when you're already in despair from losing a husband. So it's so important for women to find their voice and stand in their power. And you do that by creating a base of financial wherewithal.
Yeah. How do you know, I'm sitting here listening to everything you're saying, Sharon. I'm like, how did we get here? How did we get here to where I think it's around 30% of women across the globe are financially literate? That's it, 30%. How did we get to this spot where there's such a lack of literacy for finance for women?
Well, I think it's a global issue, and I think it's a social mores throughout history. Women were the nurturers and the men were the hunter-gatherers. And so a lot of times, and still today, women give up that responsibility for finances to the spouse, even though they have equal opportunity to learn and educate themselves. And so we're seeing that dynamic change when you see Gen Z, Gen Y, they are doing much better at understanding, having more education around money, but we're still not there yet. And Joe, the worst thing is we're not teaching money in school. So whether a girl learns about it at home probably doesn't, and she certainly doesn't learn about it in school. And so it's trial and error. You learn on the streets, and that's why it's so important to educate yourself. And historically, even today, a big issue with personal financial planners is they meet with a couple and they never even pay attention to the wife. They look at the man and they get answers, and that's horrible. And so typically when a husband passes away, 80% of the time, the woman changes financial planners because of that lack of respect. And so it's really important for women to acknowledge the standing in their own power and understanding that that doesn't mean you love your husband any less. It means that you are a partner in the financial world that you're building together. Even if you choose to stay at home as a mom, you still need to understand the money, and you need to understand where it is, how to grow it, how to invest it, how to keep it, and how to grow it for future generations. There's another stat that I have in the book. 80% of men die married. 80% of women die single. So it's really important for women to understand that they need to educate themselves.
Yeah. So I want to go back to in the beginning, education system. You know, they used to do, now back when I was in school, it's been a few years, there was some education. Why do you think that? I mean, I don't think there's any education right now. If you ask a child how to, or a student, excuse me, now how to fill out a checkbook, I don't think they'd have any idea how to do it. And you're a big you're out there pushing to try and get education back into the schools, correct?
Right. About 15 years ago, I think there were only 5 states that required a personal finance class for graduation. Today, we are at 25, and California just passed a law. So that's 26 states that will require a personal finance class for high school graduation. And I want it to be 50 states. This is an imperative. The issue we have is that, we talk about equal opportunity for our children. Well, if they're not learning about money at home, the only way we can level the playing field for all children is to teach them about money in school. It is a life skill. Everybody, no matter what your choice of career, has to deal with money. It's criminal that we're not teaching children about money.
Right. Now, it feels to me like the teachers would be willing to teach it. Is it the administrators that might be holding that up, or what's holding that up?
So I'll get into my little political world here, Joe. But yes, typically the administrators and the unions, they don't want things to change. They don't want an elective to go away because with graduation requirements. But the truth is most seniors end up with half a day. So these are arguments that don't hold water. The problem is those arguments are backed by a lot of financial power, and that financial power makes legislators agree with the unions. They don't do what they know is right for kids. They do what lines their pockets. And that's the biggest problem we have. And that is understanding that we have to do what's right for the children.
Right.
And, here in Arizona, they have 14 semester hours of electives. I'm only asking for 1 to be personal finance required. Right. And so that, to me, that argument doesn't hold water at all.
So do we just start pushing the union, or the parents start pushing the unions and the administrators say, listen, we need this?
Parents have to stand up. They have to write their legislators. They have to write their school boards. Every step of the way, you need to support the need for this.
Yeah, I agree. I think we really got to start taking a serious look at it, because by 2030, women are going to be in control of 30 trillion in financial assets. That's a lot of money. We got to start educating them as soon as we can. And, and I think only like 33% I was looking at an article, there was 33% of women graduated in finance in colleges a couple of years ago. So it's just not a big push. Why do you think women are not getting more into finance? Do you think I read another article, they said it was a confidence thing. Do you believe that to be true as well?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into it. There is still, from the older generation, there is still this thought that, boys are better in math, women are better in English, and I remember when I was in college, I was really the only woman in my accounting classes. I was one of the very first women in public accounting. So yes, I'm old, but I'm not that old. That was, we're talking, well, 50 years ago,
Right.
women just weren't doing math and science. And so we're seeing that trend change. It's just not changing fast enough. And so it's really important for us to make sure that young women know they can be anything they want. They can do anything they want. They just need to have the guts and the courage to chart their own path, depending on what they want out of life, and not let other people say you can't, and don't listen to them.
Well, you obviously did that because 50 years ago, a woman getting into CPA, you had to be the only woman in the office, most likely. It wasn't a secretary. How are you treated? What was that like?
Well, I had the gift of incredible parents that taught me, you're going to have barriers and you just need to put on your big girl pants and keep moving. When I started in public accounting, I was the only fourth woman hired in my firm in the Southeast United States. And three of us were hired together. So we were definitely on a trailblazer. And I still remember accepting the fact that if I wanted to be treated fairly and equally with the guys they hired with me, I had to work harder. That was just the fact at the time. And I was willing to do that because I wanted to succeed. And I was, in 3 years, I was ready to be promoted to manager. And I still remember the managing partner of my firm saying, Sharon, you deserve it. You've earned it, but I can't give you the title. I'm going to give you the money, but I can't give you the title because it's going to upset the guys who started with you.
Yeah.
And it was such a perfect example of the times. And we, that was long before the term sexual discrimination. All right. I just said, okay, then I have to work harder. I took it as a challenge, not an obstacle.
That's a good way to do it. I think, over the last 20 years, we've seen women entrepreneurs increase by 114%. And, women right now are controlling I think they have like 42% of small businesses. So there's a real need for financial literacy. So what do we tell young women that are coming out of high school, going into college? What should they be doing to get the literacy that they need in finance?
Take every finance class you can, every investment class you can to educate yourself. A big step in the right direction is just learning the vocabulary of money. And you either control your money or it controls you. There's nothing in between.
Right.
And so educate yourself to understand. And remember, this is for everyone, not just women. Be an investor, not a consumer. Okay. We are taught to exchange time for money. That one thing alone is a problem. Work hard, get a paycheck, hours for cash. I want you to invest your time, not spend your time. I want you to invest your time in buying, building, creating income producing assets. My favorite word on earth, assets. All right. Yeah. Assets is what creates wealth. You are financially free when the income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses. And Joe, it doesn't have to be millions of dollars.
Right.
And that's the message I want people to hear. When I met Robert Kiyosaki, he had 2 small apartment complexes and he lived in a 2-bedroom condo. He made $100,000 a year and his living expenses were $35,000, $36,000. He was financially free on $100,000 of income a year. That is the message I want people to hear. Yeah. You can do it. Just start buying, building, and creating income producing assets.
Yeah, and I just think you don't hear about, you're starting to hear more of it, right, Sharon, about women becoming real estate investors and the real estate brokerage business. We're starting to see a good number of new brokers. Just in our company, about a third of our agents, I would say even more than that, are females, and they're knocking it out of the park. But, there's a real drive there. They're entrepreneurs. There's a real drive. So they're willing to do whatever it takes. But we've got to figure out how to really give them the power to do that. And I think mentoring is something that we utilize. I think that is something that's very powerful. And we ask and we have a foundation, MentorWire. It's women that want to get into the real estate industry, be it in brokerage or escrow or title, whatever they want to be. Then we go find them a mentor. that's in that field that will help them mentor. And we were doing it on Zoom or doing it in person, but since COVID, we tried doing it on Zoom. We're not having success. We're completely reworking the company right now. But mentoring, I think, is a good way to really get this going, don't you think?
Mentoring is everything. In the fast-paced world we live in today, trying to do it on your own is a slow road.
Right.
If you find a mentor who's been where you want to go and they will mentor you, it's worth the investment because it speeds your way to success. They will steer you around the pitfalls. They will open doors. The power of association is everything in creating success in your life. So you find the right mentor and you will be, 87% of people believe that mentoring is beneficial. Only 37%, I think, have a mentor. What's the gap? Is people saying, I definitely need to accelerate my success. I need to find a mentor who can help me. But you want to find a mentor, Joe, that steps into your world. There's a lot of people out there saying they're mentors and they're selling you a program that really isn't necessarily the right size shoe for what you're looking for. I do a lot of high-level mentoring, and I limit myself to the number of clients I take because I literally step into their world. I look and see where they are, what their dreams are, what their vision is, what they've accomplished, and what needs to happen. So every client I have is unique in the services I provide to them because it's what they need at this moment to get them where they deserve to be. And that's a true mentor. Otherwise, when you have a predetermined program, that's a coach. So understand the difference between a coach and a mentor. A mentor has been where you want to go. They're stepping into your world, holding your hand and helping you get to where you need to go. A coach is basically, the one with the whistle and the clipboard, getting you to where you need to go on a predetermined path.
Right. How do you find a good female mentor? Just start asking everybody?
Yes. You look around and see who's successful in the field you want to be in. You interview them, you talk to their clients. We have a whole program. It's on my website. We take you through a questionnaire so we can understand what your needs are, what you're doing. And then my team will call and talk through to make sure that, it's the right fit. But then the opportunity you have is to ask those questions at that time. And we tailor make each program based on the individual and what their vision is, what their dreams, wishes, goals, and what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, very important. I think, I think a lot of people have to remember that when you're going out and looking for a mentor, you're asking for their time and their expertise. And I always tell people who are looking for a mentor, make sure you bring them some kind of value. Make sure you as a mentee bring that mentor some kind of value. If there's something that you can do for them, then I suggest you try and do it. And, it's, I guess, if you've got somebody that is been a commercial real estate agent, they're struggling a little bit with their marketing, and you're younger, you're in 20s, and you know how to do this stuff in seconds, offer, say, listen, let me take over your marketing. I'll do it for you. I just want to learn from you. And so create value for yourself, I think, is also something that can really help find the right mentor.
Show up, contribute, and support before you start asking for help.
Yep, exactly. What about belonging to like Crew, commercial real estate women, or any associations? Are you a firm believer in that?
Yes, I have something called the personal success equation, Joe. And so let me share that with you because power of association is a critical element. I talk about your passion and your talent, and that's all about you. Passion, what makes you do what you love what you do. Or for me, it's what makes me angry, gives me my passion. And then talent is what your education is, what your hobbies are, what your skills are. Those combined, and most of us stop there thinking we have to do everything on our own. But true success comes from the next element times A, power of association. Who's on your team? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Do you have people on your team who are strong where you are weak? Do you have a mentor? All right, every bit of my success, I can talk about the importance that power of association played. And then times A, taking action. How many times do we know what we're supposed to do? We simply don't do it. That busts me every time I say it. So your passion, your talent times power of association times taking action, and all of it framed with plus F, faith. Faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, faith that is needed and necessary, and faith that you will succeed. And when I start working with a new client, and I always go through that formula, and it's usually the power of association and the faith that need the most work. They don't have the right people around them. They don't have the right mentor. Hopefully they're changing that by hiring me. And then faith, confidence in themselves. And what happens is one helps the other. When you have a bad day and you have the right people around you, they won't let you stay there. So power of association and faith are both very strong elements for success. And I have an entire program that there's a gift to anybody that wants it. If you go to personalsuccessequation.com, you can download an ebook that I wrote that helps you determine your own personal success equation.
Right. In reading the book and hearing about, a child or a family that has a child with disabilities, and the trusts that are out there, I didn't know anything about that. Can you kind of touch on that, please?
Certainly. Because of the importance of understanding, that's why we have this book and we wrote it, to give you the resources that can help you create the best foundation for yourself and your family. And there is an opportunity to create a trust that has been just determined to allow you to provide for a special needs child, allows you to let your family and your friends contribute to that trust. And it's really important to understand it and get the right kind of advice from your local advisors.
Yeah, I didn't know that those existed. So I found that to be very interesting. That and divorce, preparing for divorce. That was very interesting to me because I started asking my sisters. I have two sisters, one older, one younger. I said, so when you were handling your finances, did you even touch? They go, no, we didn't. I said, so the first time you really touched your finances was when the divorce? Absolutely, both of them. And they're educated and they're smart women. And I was completely shocked. But, at what point, when should they start taking? From day one, when they get married, they should have separate accounts, joint accounts. What should they do here? What can you walk us through the process?
Well, the whole joint accounts, separate accounts is a personal decision that the couple has to make. But regardless, if you have a joint account for all household expenses, you still need something in your own name. So for instance, as a married couple, you may have credit cards, but the credit cards are in your husband's name and you're a card user. Well, husband dies, that card goes away, even though you're a user. So you need to have a credit card in your own name. You need to have one of your bills in your name so that you develop your own credit, because your credit scores are unique. Your husband has one, you have one, and you need to pay attention to your own credit score. It's so vitally important because you are left to your own devices. The good news is women outlive their husbands 7 years. Bad news is women outlive their husbands 7 years. And if they haven't set a financial foundation for themselves, they're in trouble.
Yeah. It's really, the credit score thing I hadn't thought about either. I'm like, you know what? Because talking to several women, they're on their husband's card and they hadn't built any credit.
15 years ago, when I wrote Think and Grow Rich for women with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, I was in the process of pulling together what I wanted to do. And I had a birthday luncheon with 12 of my closest friends. Mm-hmm. And so I asked them, I said, how many of you sign your tax return without knowing what's in it? And these were all wealthy women.
Yep.
All but 11 raised their hands. They had no idea what was in the tax return. They just signed it. And the one who didn't was a single woman who owned her own business.
Yep.
And so that was shocking to me. Mm-hmm. These were women, all financially stable. They had no idea about their personal finances. And I realized how pervasive it was. Because for me, it was not my own personal reality. I didn't realize the depth of the problem until I started working and doing the research for Think and Grow Rich for Women.
Yeah, it seems like society has kind of pushed it that way, right? The man handles the finances. And do you think that women are just afraid to have that conversation with their husband? Is that
Well,
why
we
it's
talk about how to have that conversation. I say, when you first get together, I suggest you go on a money date, right? You have a money date and you talk about your parents' philosophy around money. It's not nearly as threatening as talking to each other, but you talk about your parents' philosophy and it reveals a lot. And usually it creates a lot of laughter, but it helps you identify things that you need to work on together to understand. So, for instance, my husband and I, both of our parents were depression children. My husband's father never let go of a penny. He was the biggest miser, the biggest penny pincher on earth. I mean, he would get mad if the pool punt came on. He was just amazingly tight. My father, who was also very well, very much an entrepreneur, was very good with money, understood assets. We talked about it at the dinner table growing up. I had this huge gift of learning about money at a young age. And he was very conservative financially, but he also, if there was something he wanted, he found a way to get it. He hated coupons. He hated getting in line behind somebody with coupons. My father-in-law had a trunk full of coupons. We'd be in the grocery store and go, oh, I have a coupon for that. And he'd go out to the car to find it. So we each grew up in very different financial mindsets. His father was total scarcity, total scarcity. Don't spend a penny, don't spend a penny. My dad was find a way to create an asset to get the revenue to buy what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, but I can see where it's intimidating. I mean, going back to my sisters, they just never sat down with their husband and had the conversation. And I asked them why. They go, we just didn't. I think there's a lot of that, right? I just think people.
Did they both end up getting divorced?
Absolutely.
See,
That's, when they started learning their finances, right then, when the divorce hit, they learned all about their finances. And, talk about getting blindsided, right? And again, these are educated women. These aren't, I mean, they
well,
know
you might want to ask them because I bet neither one of them had a lot of credit in their own name either because they didn't know about the money. Everything was in the husband's name.
Yeah, everything was in the husband's name. And I'm like, you've got to establish yourself. You've got to get something going. And it was a tough go sitting there listening to them because they were just learning the process then, and you don't want to be forced to learn the process. Right? You don't want to get your education because you're forced to. You want to get your education because it's important and it's your future and it's your children's future. And I think that is something that we really need to get across, especially where we're seeing so many young women that are becoming entrepreneurs. I just think that with the increase of female entrepreneurship, there's a definite need for it.
And I think one of the first steps that they can do, if you're a woman out there right now and you're saying, I'm kind of like Joe's sisters, I don't know how to change that because I don't want to create an argument. One of the ways to do that is number one, get a credit card in your own name and have your husband as the co-signer. So it's not like you're doing it without his knowledge, but have a credit card in your own name. And then also with your tax return, say, honey, I want to understand. Will you walk me through this? Or if you have a tax advisor that prepares your return, make an appointment and go through so you understand everything in your tax return. Because you might discover a few things that you didn't even know. And you need to understand what the assets are. And when you talk about creating an estate plan, if you're happily married, you should have an estate plan, which means you're going to sit down with an estate attorney and you're going to go through all your assets and how it's assigned. Do you know who the beneficiary is on life insurance policies? All right. They're very important to all get all those things lined up and know that you have the opportunity to educate yourself by doing something that's not threatening to your spouse.
Yeah.
But take the action and do it so that you can educate yourself.
Yeah. And the thing is with my two sisters, which I hope they don't watch because I'm probably going to get a phone call that I'm giving all this away. But, you talk about two women are on top of their finances now. They know where every penny goes. They've got it all down. And
so they should be a shining example to other people.
Yeah.
Because they can now, I talk about turning your mess into your message.
Yeah.
And the message into your mission, and the mission becomes somebody else's miracle. They have the opportunity to share their experience, being vulnerable, yes, but share their experience so other women won't have to suffer the way they did.
Yeah. Yeah. They both own homes, incredible families. They had all worked out, but they had a rough patch, as you know, because it was just, I think, a lot of trust. There's the trust. And, that's something that I guess I'm afraid to touch on, but how far should we trust our spouse? I mean, if I'm a woman, what do I do here? You know, how to, yeah, it's going to be tough, right?
Well, obviously, it's trust and respect.
Right.
So it's really, it's really not. People consider that it's a scale of, the justice scale. The more you ask questions, the less you trust. No, the more you ask questions, the more you can become a partner.
Right.
And that's the way to approach it. I really want to understand our finances. I want to understand what was happening so that I can help. And maybe it's, when you get in there and you understand everything, maybe you're not going to spend as much money on Amazon, right? Maybe you're going to be able to be a little bit more of an investor, supporting, saving money as opposed to spending money. So don't think of it as one is the same as the other. No, as you become more interested and educated, you become a partner, and so you get better together.
Yeah. I don't want to be picking on men here. I think, we had a case where there was a client that the wife was in charge of the finance, and all of a sudden she was an executive at a company, and he was at home one day, and the bank came knocking over for closing on the property. He goes, "What do you mean?" And so it was reversed. He had trusted his wife to completely do it. So I don't want to be throwing men under the bus here, but I was talking your spouse. You need to trust your spouse,
Yep.
what level you go to. Well, Sharon, thank you very much for this. I do think that this is such an incredible book for everybody to pick up and read. And I think there's a lot of little golden nuggets in here that everybody can pick up on. Do you have any closing advice for women in financial literacy?
Well, absolutely. And I think, How Many Works for Women, Take Control or Lose It is a great book for men too, to understand your wives, understand the women in your life, to be better prepared to help educate your daughters. So we're getting a lot of great feedback from the men who read it as well. And I thank you, Joe, for taking the time to read it and for your great comments. But for everyone out there, man or woman, you are the CEO of your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't take the steps to protect yourself, who will?
Yeah.
And that's what happens. Too many of us give up control. And when it comes to money, you're either in control of your money or your money is in control of you. There's nothing in between. And 87% of Americans are stressed out about money. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Start educating yourself. Read the book. Go to my website, SharonLechter.com. I'll be happy to autograph the book for you. I have other information there, other programs to help you, but get serious about your money, because the gift of financial education is the gift of a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So get your head out of the sand, figure out where you are financially. Even if the picture is bleak, you're going to feel empowered because you took that step. And then I'm going to help you take the next step. One day at a time, you're going to start taking small steps. I call them little wins. And all of a sudden, you're going to wake up and you're going to be so much better financially secure.
Hearing that 87% number, Sharon, I just can't imagine how many people are going to sleep at night stressing out because they don't know, they don't want to look at it. And, you need to do a deep dive into your finances, and, because health is wealth. The money's great, but if you don't have your health, and stress is a killer. So, well, Sharon, I'm going to put a link to your website down below. We're going to put the book is going to be on the joekillinger.co. We're going to be on the website. And so you'll be able to find it there, so you can grab it and read it and let us know what you think. And Sharon, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you, Joe. I so appreciate it. And I appreciate you highlighting this very important topic.
Thank you. And for those of you watching, if you could, please give us a like. And if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.